I walked out of my father's attorney's office feeling lighter than I had in months. After a year of grief and endless paperwork, the Martinez Gallery was finally, officially mine. Dad had built it from nothing over 40 years, and now his legacy was in my hands. But when I got back to the gallery and checked the security camera app on my phone, I saw something that made my blood run cold. My brother Michael and my niece Jessica standing in the back office, going through files they had no business touching. My father, Roberto Martinez, died exactly 1 year ago. He was 73, a massive stroke while hanging paintings for a new exhibition. 1 minute he was adjusting the lighting on a contemporary piece, the next he was on the floor. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. Dad had been everything to me. After Mom died when I was 16, it was just the two of us against the world. Well, the two of us and my older brother Michael. But Michael had always been different. Where Dad saw art as life, Michael saw it as business. Where I spent weekends at galleries and museums with Dad, Michael was networking at country clubs, always chasing the next deal. I'm Sarah Martinez, 48 years old, high school art teacher for the past 23 years. Never married, no kids, just me and my students and my paints. Dad used to joke that I got all the artistic genes while Michael got the business ones, except Michael's businesses kept failing. A real estate venture in 2008 that went under. A tech startup in 2015 that burned through investor money. A cryptocurrency scheme in 2020 that nearly got him sued. Through it all, Dad bailed him out. Not because Michael deserved it, but because that's what fathers do. But Dad never made Michael a partner in the gallery. That was sacred ground, just for him and me. When Dad died, I was shattered. I took a leave of absence from teaching, spent weeks crying in my apartment, barely able to function. Michael drove down from San Jose to help me sort through everything. He stayed at Dad's house in Sonoma, the beautiful craftsman with the vineyard view that Dad had bought 30 years ago. Michael's daughter Jessica came too. She's 24, fresh out of business school with an MBA from USC. Smart, polished, always dressed like she's heading to a board meeting. She'd interned at some fancy consulting firm and talked constantly about disruption and optimization and market positioning. They were both so helpful. Michael handled the funeral arrangements, dealt with the mortuary, organized the memorial service. Jessica helped me go through Dad's files, explained the business accounts, set up spreadsheets to track everything. The gallery itself was overwhelming. Martinez Gallery occupied a beautiful historic building in downtown Healdsburg, 3,000 square feet of exhibition space, plus offices and storage in the back. Dad represented about 30 artists, mostly contemporary painters and sculptors from California and the Pacific Northwest. He wasn't wealthy in a flashy way, but the gallery did well. He owned the building outright, lived modestly, invested carefully. About 2 months after the funeral, Michael started talking about the future of the gallery. "Sarah, you need to think practically," he said over dinner at Dad's house. "You're a teacher. You don't know how to run a business." "Dad taught me everything," I said. "I've been helping at the gallery since I was 12. "Helping isn't running," Jessica chimed in. She had this way of smiling when she said something cutting, like she was doing you a favor by being honest. Uncle Roberto was old school. The art world has changed. You need digital marketing, social media strategy, e-commerce integration. When's the last time you even looked at the website analytics? I didn't know what website analytics were, and she knew it. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "Make us partners," Michael said. "You handle the art side, the creative vision, the artist relationships. We handle the business. Jessica can modernize operations. I'll manage finances and expansion strategy." "Expansion? There's a property available in Napa," Michael said. "Perfect for a second location. With Dad's assets and the gallery's equity, we could leverage into something much bigger." Something about it felt wrong, but I couldn't articulate why. They made it sound so reasonable. I was grieving, exhausted, and they were offering to help. A week later, I met with Dad's attorney, James Rodriguez. He was young for an estate lawyer, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "Your father's will is straightforward," James said, sliding papers across his desk. "Everything goes to you. The house in Sonoma, worth approximately $850,000. The gallery building and business, valued at $1.4 million. His investment accounts total about $900,000. There's also his personal art collection. We're still getting it appraised, but preliminary estimates put it around $500,000. One piece in particular, a Rothko sketch from 1962, might be worth significantly more. I stared at the numbers. That's over $3 million. Closer to $3.2 million, yes. Your father was very careful with money. He wanted you taken care of. My throat tightened. Dad had always worried about me. The unmarried art teacher who'd never owned property or built wealth. He'd made sure I'd be okay. Your brother called my office last week, James continued. He wanted to know about making changes to the business structure, something about adding partners. He and Jessica want to help me run the gallery. James's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Sarah, I need to be clear about something. Under your father's will, all of this is yours. Sole ownership. You don't owe anyone an explanation about what you do with it. Adding partners would mean giving away equity in a business worth over $1 million. I'd advise you to think very carefully before making any such changes. I promised him I would. That night, Michael called. So you met with Dad's lawyer? Yes. Everything's settled. It's all mine now. That's great, Sarah. Really great. So, about the partnership agreement, Jessica drew up some preliminary papers. Nothing formal yet, just so we can start planning the Napa expansion. Can you come by the house this weekend to review them? I need more time to think about it. Silence. Then, Sarah, we're just trying to help. Dad would want us to work together as a family. That stung because it was probably true. Dad had always wanted Michael to be more involved in his life, more interested in art, more present, but he'd also never made Michael a partner. There had to be a reason for that. The next few weeks were a blur. I was back at school, teaching my advanced placement art students, trying to maintain some normalcy. Jessica started coming to the gallery regularly, just to observe and learn, she said. She'd sit in the office with her laptop, taking notes, asking questions about our processes, our pricing, our artist contracts. Michael would drop by too, always with suggestions. We should do more corporate art consulting. We should host wine and paint events for tourists. We should sell prints online. Everything was about growth, expansion, monetization. I felt like I was drowning. They weren't wrong that I didn't understand business in the way they did, but this was Dad's gallery. It wasn't supposed to be a startup or a franchise. It was supposed to be art. One afternoon in late September, I came back to the gallery after school and found Jessica in the back office, going through Dad's filing cabinets. "What are you doing?" I asked. She jumped, startled. "Oh, Sarah, I didn't hear you come in. I was just looking for the insurance documents. Michael wants to make sure we have adequate coverage before we start any expansion plans." "We haven't agreed to any expansion plans." "Right, of course. I just meant when we do." That smile again. "You really should keep better records, though. Some of these files go back 20 years. We should digitize everything. Get rid of the paper trail." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Please don't touch Dad's files without asking me first." "Sure, no problem." She closed the cabinet drawer. "I'll get going. See you this weekend?" After she left, I checked the files she'd been looking at. They weren't insurance documents. They were the original artist contracts, the property deed for the gallery building, and Dad's personal financial records. That Saturday, I drove up to Sonoma for what was supposed to be a family dinner. I'd been staying at Dad's house less and less, preferring my small apartment in Healdsburg even though the house was bigger and nicer. Something about being there with Michael and Jessica felt wrong now. I arrived early, planning to make Dad's famous chicken mole recipe. As I walked up to the front door, I heard voices inside, Michael and Jessica, talking in the living room. The door wasn't fully closed, and their voices carried through. "She's going to sign next week," Michael was saying. "I made it sound like it's just about formalizing our roles, nothing major. She has no idea the partnership agreement gives us controlling interest." My hand froze on the doorknob. "What about the Rothko?" Jessica asked. "Once we have controlling interest, we can sell it immediately, right? Rodriguez says it could fetch $800,000, maybe more at the right auction. Combined with the line of credit we'll take out on the Sonoma property, that's over $1 million to fund the Napa location." By the time Sarah figures out what's happening, we'll own the expansion, and she'll just be a minority partner in her own father's gallery. You don't think she'll fight it? Michael laughed. Sarah? She spent her whole life teaching teenagers to finger paint. She doesn't have the backbone for a real fight. Besides, once the papers are signed, there's nothing she can do. I already talked to our corporate attorney. The way we've structured it, she can't challenge it without proof we misled her, and she doesn't even know enough about business to understand what she's signing. What if she doesn't sign? She will. I'll play the family card, remind her what Dad would want. Sarah's always been too soft, too trusting. It's pathetic, really. Dad spoiled her, gave her everything, and she's too stupid to even protect it. I stood there, frozen, as they continued talking. They discussed selling off some of Dad's collection piece by piece, cutting ties with artists who weren't commercially viable enough, eventually selling the original Healdsburg gallery and consolidating everything under a new corporate structure they'd control. I backed away from the door silently, walked back to my car, and sat there shaking. My father's voice came to me, a memory from when I was 16 and Mom had just died. We were standing in the gallery late at night, and I was crying because some kids at school had been cruel about my painting. Sarah, mihija, he said, you have something those kids will never have. You have strength in your soul, not the loud kind that shows off, the quiet kind, the kind that endures. When you're older, when life tests you, you'll find that strength. And when you do, don't be afraid to use it. I started my car and drove back to Healdsburg. I didn't go to my apartment. I went straight to the gallery, let myself in, and spent the next 4 hours going through every file, every document, every piece of paper Dad had kept. That's when I found them. The emails, printed out and filed away. From 3 years ago, when Dad had briefly considered making Michael a partner. Michael had written to someone named Brandon Chen, apparently a business consultant, discussing strategies for maximizing extraction of value from the gallery assets once he had access. Dad must have seen these emails somehow, and that's why he never made Michael a partner. There were also notes in Dad's handwriting. Michael sees dollar signs, not art. Jessica has her father's eyes. Trust only Sarah with the legacy. I photographed everything with my phone. Then I called James Rodriguez at home. James, I need to see you first thing Monday morning, I said, and I need you to recommend a good business attorney, someone who specializes in fraud. Sarah, are you okay? What's going on? Not yet, I said, but I will be. I spent Sunday preparing. I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed at both the gallery and the Sonoma house. I called the security company and removed Michael and Jessica's access codes. I went to the bank and had them frozen off all accounts where they'd been added as authorized users. I changed every password, every PIN, every security question. Monday morning, I was in James Rodriguez's office at 8 a.m. I showed him everything. The overheard conversation, Dad's old emails and notes, the partnership agreement Jessica had drawn up, which I'd found a draft of on the gallery computer. James's face grew darker as he read. This is attempted fraud, he said. They were planning to steal controlling interest in your inheritance through deception. And given your father's notes, they may have tried something similar with him before he died. What do I do? First, you've done the right thing, securing everything. Second, I'm going to refer you to Margaret Chen. She's the best corporate attorney in the county. Third, we need to send a cease and desist letter immediately. And fourth, you need to decide how far you want to take this. What do you mean? You could report this to the police. What they planned constitutes fraud. Or you could handle it privately, just cut them off. It's your choice. I thought about it. I want them to know, I know. I want them to understand that I'm not who they think I am. Then let's make that happen. Margaret Chen met with me that afternoon. She was sharp, efficient, and angry on my behalf. I've seen cases like this before, she said. Family members targeting women who've inherited wealth, assuming they're easy marks. Let me be very clear. You have all the power here. They have none. They can't touch your inheritance without your consent, and now that you know their plan, they'll never get that consent. What about the Rothko? I asked. They said it might be worth $800,000. We'll get it appraised immediately. If it's worth that much, it needs proper insurance and security. And Sarah, that money is yours to do with whatever you want. You don't owe your brother or your niece a single dollar. Over the next 2 days, Margaret's office sent formal cease and desist letters to both Michael and Jessica. The letters laid out everything I knew, threatened legal action, and demanded they stay away from both properties and all business assets. Michael called me 6 times. I didn't answer. Jessica sent a dozen texts. I blocked her number. Finally, on Wednesday evening, Michael showed up at the gallery. I'd half expected this. Margaret had advised me to not be alone if he confronted me, so I'd asked my friend David from school to be there. David taught AP History and had been my friend for 15 years. He was 6'3" and looked intimidating even though he was basically a gentle giant. Michael pounded on the gallery door. "Sarah! I know you're in there! Open up!" I unlocked the door but left the chain on. "What do you want, Michael? What the hell is going on? I got some insane letter from a lawyer claiming I was trying to defraud you. This is crazy. I was trying to help you." "I heard you," I said calmly. "Last Saturday, at Dad's house, I heard you and Jessica planning to steal my inheritance." His face went pale, then red. "You were spying on us?" "I was coming to make dinner. You left the door open." "Sarah, you misunderstood. That was just business talk, discussing strategy. You called me too stupid to fight back. You were planning to trick me into signing away controlling interest in Dad's gallery. You were going to sell the Rothko without telling me. That's not Jessica was just we need to sit down and talk about this like adults." "We're done talking, Michael. Margaret Chen has all the evidence. If you or Jessica contact me again, if you come near the gallery or Dad's house, if you try anything at all, we're filing a criminal complaint for attempted fraud. I'm your brother." This was the moment. I felt it, just like Dad said I would. The moment when quiet strength becomes loud. "Then you should have treated me like your sister," I said, "instead of like a mark. You can't do this. That partnership agreement was going to save you from making terrible decisions. You don't know anything about running a business." "You're right," I said. "I don't know business like you do. But I know art. I know Dad's vision. And I know the difference between building something and destroying it for profit. Dad knew that difference too. That's why he never made you a partner, Michael. He saw what you were." "What I was? I was the son who visited him, who tried to have a relationship with him while you were off playing teacher. You were always his favorite, always the special one. And now you get everything while I get nothing? You got plenty, Michael. Dad bailed you out of 3 failed businesses. He paid for your divorce attorney. He paid Jessica's tuition. He gave you everything except the one thing you wanted, which was control of something you didn't build and don't understand." David stepped into view behind me. Michael saw him and took a step back. "This isn't over," Michael said. "Yes," I said, "it is." And I closed the door. I watched through the window as he stood there for a long moment, then finally walked away. The next week was surprisingly peaceful. No calls, no letters, no ambush visits. Margaret filed all the necessary paperwork to ensure my ownership was airtight. James helped me set up a trust for the gallery to protect it long-term. The Rothko was appraised at $825,000. I had it moved to a secure storage facility with climate control and insurance coverage. I also did something else. I went through Dad's artist roster and reached out to each one personally. I told them about Dad's death, about my plans to continue his legacy, about my commitment to supporting their work. Almost all of them were relieved. 2 of them told me that Michael had contacted them months ago, asking if they'd be willing to switch to a new gallery venture he was planning. They'd said no and hadn't told me because they didn't want to cause family problems. In October, I made a decision. I took a year's leave of absence from teaching. The school board approved it, understanding I needed time to grieve and to learn the business. I threw myself into running the gallery. It wasn't easy. I had to learn accounting, inventory management, contracts, insurance, marketing, but I loved it. Every day I walked into that building, I felt Dad with me. I started hosting educational programs for local schools, bringing kids in to meet the artists. I set up a scholarship fund for art students using part of the Rothko money. I expanded the gallery's representation to include more diverse artists. David helped me a lot during this time. He'd come by after school, help me with spreadsheets, talk through decisions. Somewhere in November, I realized our coffee meetings had turned into something more than friendship. He'd been divorced for 5 years, had 2 teenage kids who lived with his ex-wife. We took it slow, but it was nice to have someone who believed in me. In December, I drove up to Sonoma to spend Christmas at Dad's house. I was decorating the tree when there was a knock at the door. It was Jessica. She looked different, thinner, tired, less polished. She wasn't wearing her usual designer clothes, just jeans and a sweater. "Aunt Sarah, can we talk?" I almost said no. But something in her expression made me pause. 5 minutes. We sat in Dad's living room, where I'd overheard their plotting 3 months earlier. "I'm sorry," Jessica said. "What we did was wrong. What I did was wrong." "Yes, it was. My dad told me it was fine, that you didn't really understand business anyway and we were actually helping you. I believed him, because I wanted to believe him. He's my dad, and he's always talked about how Grandpa favored you and how unfair it was." She looked down at her hands. "But that wasn't true, was it? Grandpa gave him plenty, he just wanted more." "What do you want, Jessica?" "Nothing. I don't want anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, and to tell you that I got a job in Seattle. I'm moving in January. I won't bother you anymore." She stood to leave. "Jessica," I said, "do you actually like art?" She looked surprised. "What? Art? Do you like it, or was it always just about business for you?" She thought about it. "I don't know. My dad always said art was impractical, that business was what mattered. But I remember coming to the gallery when I was little, and Grandpa would show me paintings and tell me stories about the artists. I remember thinking it was beautiful." I went to the closet and pulled out a folder. "These are applications for the Roberto Martinez Art Scholarship. It's for underserved students who want to study art. I'm going to need someone to help me review applications and manage the program. It doesn't pay much, but it's meaningful work." She stared at me. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to do something that matters. You can say no. You can go to Seattle. But if you want to be part of something real instead of just chasing money, the offer's there." Jessica started crying. "Why would you do that after what I did?" "Because my dad believed people could change, and because you're 24 years old. You have time to become someone other than your father's daughter." She took the folder with shaking hands. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just show up and do the work. And Jessica, if you betray me again, there won't be a third chance." "I understand." She left, and I sat there wondering if I'd made a mistake. But Dad would have given her a second chance, so I would too. Michael never apologized. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to Arizona, started another business venture. I didn't reach out, and he didn't contact me. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. In March, the gallery hosted a major exhibition featuring 5 of Dad's favorite artists. We called it Legacy, the vision of Roberto Martinez. The opening night was packed. Artists, collectors, students, community members. David came with his kids, who were surprisingly interested in the contemporary sculpture installations. Standing in the gallery, surrounded by beauty and creativity and people who understood what Dad had built, I felt whole for the first time since he died. That night, alone in my apartment, I poured a glass of the expensive Sonoma wine Dad used to save for special occasions. I sat on my couch, looked at his picture on my bookshelf, and raised my glass. "We did it, Dad," I said. "The gallery's safe. The art is safe. Your legacy is safe." In the silence of my home, in the life I'd fought to protect, in the strength I'd discovered I had all along, I heard his voice in my memory. "I always knew you had it in you, Mihija." Jessica moved to Seattle but came back twice a month to work on the scholarship program. She was good at it, organized and passionate in a way I hadn't seen before. We weren't close, but we were learning to be family again. The real kind, built on trust and mutual respect, not blood obligation and manipulation. David and I went on a trip to San Francisco in April to visit museums. Standing in front of a Rothko at SF MoMA, one similar to the sketch Dad had left me, he took my hand. "You should sell it," he said. "The sketch, I mean. Put the money toward the gallery." I shook my head. "Dad left it to me for a reason. It's not about the money. What's it about?" I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fight, the strength I'd found when I needed it. "It's about knowing who you are," I said, "and not letting anyone take that from you." We stood there, looking at art my father loved, and I knew that wherever he was proud of me. Not because I'd won, or because I'd fought back, but because I'd protected what mattered. The art, the legacy, the truth. The quiet girl who taught high school art had found her voice. And it turned out, when it mattered, she could be pretty damn loud.